creation of the world, the scriptures record the tendency of humans to be self-centered and disobedient. This disobedience is not a rejection of an autocratic power figure. God creates human beings and wants what is best for them, what will lead to human fulfillment. The story of Adam and Eve begins the Hebrew Scriptures, and most Western Christians consider that it represents a myth. But myth can convey truth. The truth resides in the claim that God created the universe and all that is in it, and that human beings are in a special position, having free will. They constantly choose to disobey, and yet God always forgives and provides a new start. A peaceful and wonderful world is portrayed, and human beings were placed in it to enjoy it and to enjoy God's presence. However, for modern Christians, the issues are more complex. Most Christians accept Darwin's theory of natural selection, and, whilst maintaining that God created and sustains the universe, nevertheless see human beings as evolving from lower animals. Generally, Christians do not see a tension between their faith and science, although there are some who still hold to a literal interpretation of the text, and who therefore reject evolution, but these are a minority. Following the exclusion of Adam and Eve from Eden, God also showed God's care for them by cherishing them and being with them in spite of their difficulties. This is another theme found throughout both Judaism and Christianity, that God will never forsake God's people, and will be with them even though this presence may not be obvious. The story of Adam and Eve and the population of the earth continues through the story of Noah, when God is recorded as being so angry with human beings because of their selfishness and disobedience that the whole of creation was nearly destroyed. But Noah and his family and the entire created order were preserved as a result of the righteousness of Noah and the mercy of God. Some Jewish rabbis have seen parallels with the subsequent righteousness of the Jews preserving the whole of creation from destruction. Arguably, the single most important figure in the Jewish scriptures is Abraham. He was a descendant of Noah and lived in the city of Ur, in what is now Iraq. He worshipped a single god, and this was unusual and unpopular in the world of his time. The legacy of Abraham was enormous. He is revered as the father not only of the Jewish nation, but of all Jews. He is seen by Muslims as the first to submit to Allah, and therefore the first Muslim, and by Christians as the father of faith, as his whole life is centered on obedience to and worship of God. The story of Abraham is at the core of the faith of any Jew, and Jesus would have been no exception. The whole of Abraham's life was based on trust in God, and in the promises of God, even when these promises seemed absurd. He trusted God when God promised him a son, even though his wife Sarah was past the menopause. He trusted God in every aspect of his life, even to the extent of being willing to place obedience to God before his duty to his son and family. It was to Abraham and his descendants that God is held to have made a covenant or promise that the land of Israel and Palestine would belong to them, and Jews still look to this promise as a justification for a Jewish homeland. Abraham was the first to show clearly the single most important requirement of the God of the people of Israel. That God demanded absolute loyalty. God had to be at the center of the whole of the life of every devout Jew. Everything else was to be put in second place. It was failure to keep this command that Jews saw as the chief reason for the troubles that were to befall them in their history. God entered into a covenant, effectively a binding promise between God on one side and Abraham and his descendants on the other. Provided the children of Abraham maintained loyalty to God, then God would protect them. God would never abandon them totally, even though at times God might seem far away. Abraham had 2 children, one by Sarah's slave Hagar, with whom Abraham slept at the request of Sarah when she was convinced that she was barren and could not have children, and the other by Sarah herself. The second child was named Isaac, which means laughter, and it was from Isaac and one of his 2 sons, Jacob, that all the tribes of Israel were seen as descended. Blaise Pascal referred to the God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, not of the philosophers and the scholars. He was emphasizing the personal nature of God and the relationship that God is recorded as having with these 3 great ancestors of the Jewish nation, and which he considered continued in the Christian tradition. It is important to recognize that the people of Israel and modern Jews see themselves as descended from Abraham through Isaac and then Jacob. There is a real sense in which the people of Israel